Now it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, choosing from all. And they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. There were giants on the earth in those days. And also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Only 4 verses, yet capable of generating centuries of debate. Who are the sons of God? In Hebrew, Bene Elohim also appears in the book of Job to refer to celestial beings who present themselves before God. For the most ancient Jewish tradition, they were not mere humans, but real celestial entities present in the divine council. This interpretation separates them from common humanity and places them as the protagonists of a contact episode, uniting the celestial with the earthly. Block 2. The Book of Enoch and the 200 Watchers. The Book of Enoch, although excluded from the biblical canon by later religious authorities, was a highly respected text in Second Temple Judaism. It not only circulated widely among Hebrew communities, but was also known in the early centuries of Christianity. Some church fathers cited it as a source of authority, and in the Epistle of Jude, New Testament, there are direct references to its visions and prophecies. This writing greatly expands the brief description in Genesis. It places us in the days of Jared, a time before the flood when, according to Enoch, an extraordinary event occurred. A group of 200 watchers descended from their heavenly dwelling to Mount Hermon. There, bound by a solemn oath, they promised not to return to their place of origin until fulfilling a purpose to take human wives and beget offspring with them. For the mentality of that time, this was a direct transgression against divine order, as it broke the separation between the heavenly and earthly realms. The text even provides a list of leaders, highlighting Semyaza, the group's chief, and Azazel, a central figure in the transmission of forbidden knowledge. Each watcher specialized in a discipline, and their influence spread across different areas. Azazel taught the making of swords, knives, shields, and armor, introduced the use of metals, and with it, organized warfare. Barachiel instructed in astrology, giving men the ability to read and interpret the stars. Kokabel revealed the knowledge of constellations, opening the door to celestial cartography. Ezekiel taught cloud observation and weather prediction. Arachiel showed the signs of the earth, possibly early knowledge of geography or geology. Shamsiel explained the cycles and signs of the sun. Sariel detailed the signs of the moon, its influence on tides and on calendars. They did not limit themselves to teaching men. They also instructed women in the use of cosmetics, ornaments, and beautification techniques. In Enoch's narrative, this is seen as moral corruption, as it fostered vanity and seduction in a context where purity was the supreme value. This act not only represented a spiritual rebellion, but also a direct intervention in the cultural and technological evolution of humanity. The text makes it clear that the arrival of the Watchers forever changed the destiny of mankind. Block 3. A transfer of ancient technology. If we strip away the religious layer and read Enoch's account with modern eyes, what is described resembles an accelerated transfer of technology. Each teaching corresponds to an area of knowledge whose appearance in human history was gradual and hard-won. Metallurgy and weaponry. The sudden introduction of techniques to forge weapons and armor would have completely changed the balance of power between clans or tribes, increasing conflicts and favoring those who received the knowledge. Astronomy and astrology. The ability to identify constellations and celestial movements implies prolonged observation and data recording. Receiving this knowledge all at once would be equivalent to leaping ahead by centuries of research. Meteorology and geography. Understanding weather patterns and the lay of the land allows for crop planning, navigation, and disaster prediction, granting an enormous strategic advantage. Chemistry and goldsmithing. Working with cosmetics, dyes, and precious metals implies mastering rudimentary chemical techniques and knowledge of materials that require experimentation. What is extraordinary is that, in the account, all these areas are delivered simultaneously. There was no gradual development like the one we see in archaeological history, but rather a complete package of knowledge transmitted in a specific moment. For ancient astronaut theorists, this fits the idea of a premeditated plan. A far more advanced civilization decides to seed Earth with technology and knowledge to accelerate the formation of a complex society. However, the speed of this transfer may have caused moral and social collapse, as there was no cultural framework to safely absorb such advances. Block 4. The parallel with the Anunnaki and other cultures. The phenomenon of beings descending from the sky to teach is not exclusive to the Hebrew tradition. Various cultures around the world preserve myths with almost identical patterns. In Sumer, the Anunnaki were gods who came down to Earth to give humans essential knowledge: agriculture, law, architecture, and astronomy. They were mediators between the supreme gods and men, and their instruction shaped the first city-states. In Mesoamerica, figures such as Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan appear as teachers who came from the sky, bearers of civilization. They taught how to build temples, measure time through precise calendars, and write, laying the foundations for advanced cultures such as the Maya and the Toltec. Their image is often associated with a luminous or feathered figure, a symbol of the connection between heaven and earth. In ancient Greece, the myth of Prometheus tells how a titan stole fire from the gods to give it to men. Fire here symbolizes knowledge, technique, and creative power. For his act, Prometheus was severely punished, reflecting the price of defying divine authority in favor of humanity. These accounts follow a recurring pattern: arrival of non-human or semi-divine beings, transmission of advanced and transformative knowledge, problematic use or negative consequences arising from that knowledge, punishment or withdrawal of those beings, leaving humanity marked by their presence. The similarity among cultures that never had direct contact strengthens the hypothesis of a common origin, perhaps an ancestral memory of a real event reinterpreted through different traditions and languages. Block 5. The Judgment, the Flood as a Reset. In Genesis, after the union of the sons of God with the daughters of men, it is stated that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and God decided to wipe mankind from the face of the earth, except for Noah and his family. In Enoch, the cause is even more explicit. The Nephilim, hybrids born from this union, became violent, devoured resources, practiced cannibalism, and corrupted humanity. Human genetics and moral structure were contaminated. Interpreted through the ancient astronaut theory, the flood was a reset eliminating an altered generation and the technology that was not meant to remain, preserving only a pure human lineage. Block 6. Why forbidden? If knowledge is valuable, why would it be forbidden? Perhaps because it was not harmless advancement, but dangerous technology given to a species that was not yet ready to handle it. Modern history is full of examples: nuclear energy, genetic engineering, biological weapons. In the wrong hands, progress becomes a threat. If the Watchers were extraterrestrial visitors, they may have acted out of curiosity, as part of a plan for domination, or as a failed social experiment. Perhaps they sought to create a civilization dependent on them, or simply to hasten an evolutionary leap that, without proper control, spiraled into chaos. Block 7. Will it happen again? In Daniel 2:43 there is an intriguing passage. They will mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another. Some interpreters see here a reference to a new attempt at fusion between the human and something other. If in the past, There was an intervention that altered human genetics. Could it happen again? Modern science, with genetic editing, cloning, and artificial intelligence, is crossing boundaries that were once impossible. It is not far-fetched to think that contact with another intelligence, terrestrial or otherwise, could aim for a new hybridization. Block 8. The Watchers in religious texts. In Jewish tradition, the Bene Elohim were part of the Heavenly Council. The Book of Enoch describes them as angels who watch over humanity. However, their fall occurs when they cross the forbidden line of uniting with human women. In early Christian tradition, some church fathers accepted this literal interpretation. Tertullian mentions that the conduct of women in his time should be monitored to avoid repeating the error that led to the fall of the Watchers. In Islam, although the Book of Enoch is not part of the canonical corpus, there are accounts of beings such as Harut and Marut, sent to test humanity and who ended up falling into temptation. Block 9. Connections with Mesopotamia and the Apkallu. The Apkallu of Mesopotamian mythology were 7 sages sent by the gods to instruct humanity in arts and sciences. Some accounts describe them as hybrids, half-man and half-fish. In certain versions, the Apkallu rebel or transmit forbidden knowledge and are punished for it. This parallel with the Watchers is so close that some scholars believe the Enoch account is a Hebrew adaptation of older Mesopotamian myths. Block 10. The technological legacy. Weapons, astronomy, calendars, agricultural techniques, architecture. The impact of the knowledge attributed to the Watchers or their equivalents in other cultures cannot be underestimated. These advances do not develop simultaneously in isolated civilizations without some kind of external stimulus. The pattern of sudden advancement appears over and over again as if an unknown catalyst had intervened at key moments in human history. Block 11. Modern theories about the Watchers. The ancient astronaut theories, popularized by authors such as Zechariah Sitchin and Erich von Däniken, reinterpret these accounts as evidence of extraterrestrial visits. According to this view, the fallen angels would be engineers or scientists from another civilization who deliberately intervened in human history. The descent of the Watchers would be equivalent to a contact mission, establishing a presence on Earth, selecting individuals to interact with, and accelerating the development of the species. The problem arises when the experiment gets out of control and the benefactors are seen as corruptors. Block 12. The collective memory of humanity. Why do so many cultures preserve myths of gods or heroes who taught arts and sciences? It is possible that these are distorted memories of real encounters, passed down from generation to generation and adapted to each language and religion. The common pattern suggests a single root: beings of external origin. Transmission of knowledge impossible to develop within the initial historical context. A divine or moral reaction against that transmission. Block 13. The dangers of premature knowledge. In the hands of a primitive humanity, advanced metallurgy, precise astronomy, or manipulation techniques could be tools of control and destruction. Later history shows that knowledge without ethical maturity leads to wars, exploitation, and the collapse of societies. By accelerating development, the Watchers may have created an unbalanced civilization technologically advanced for its time, but morally immature. Block 14. Reflections in the present. Today, with artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and instant communications, we are experiencing a comparable acceleration. The warning of the myths is clear. A technological leap does not guarantee a moral leap. If something or someone were to intervene now, the risk of repeating the mistakes of the past would still be present. Block 15. Scenario of a new descent. If the Watchers were to return today, the world would be very different from the one they found in antiquity. Earth is no longer populated by scattered tribes, but by an interconnected civilization with the capacity to observe its own planet from space. The arrival of non-human visitors would not go unnoticed, at least not in the way described in ancient texts. In a modern context, they might resort to more subtle methods. Instead of openly descending, they could infiltrate communication systems, manipulate global information, or inspire discoveries that appear to be the result of human research. A physicist who suddenly revolutionizes energy, an engineer who develops technology unreachable for our time, a geneticist who manages to alter human DNA perfectly, all could be part of a carefully executed plan. Another possibility is that they might adopt an appearance suited to our current beliefs. In antiquity, they presented themselves as celestial beings. In a scientific and skeptical world, they could appear as interstellar ambassadors, representatives of a galactic federation, or discoverers of habitable worlds. The objective would be the same: to make direct contact with our species, but without provoking immediate rejection. And there is an even more unsettling scenario: that their return be disguised as a natural phenomenon or as a consequence of our own advances. Climate manipulation, the use of autonomous artificial intelligence, large-scale genetic editing, all could serve as a curtain to conceal a direct intervention, while humanity believes it is solely responsible for those changes. Block 16. Cultural and archaeological footprints. If we accept the idea that the Watchers or other similar beings were here in the past, then their traces should be scattered all over the planet. And in fact, that is what some researchers claim to find. Megalithic monuments that defy the known technology of their supposed periods of construction, such as the pyramids of Egypt, the structures of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, or Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Astronomical alignments in temples, dolmens, and ancient cities, perfectly oriented toward solstices, equinoxes, or specific constellations, suggesting celestial knowledge far superior to what they should have possessed. Ancient maps, like that of Piri Reis, which show coastlines and geographical details with inexplicable precision for their time, as if they were based on much older information. In many cultures, legends insist that these works were not made solely by human hands, but with the help or instruction of gods or teachers who came from the stars. Even in ancient iconography, one can observe figures carrying objects resembling technological tools, suits, helmets, or strange devices for their time. Official archaeology often attributes these anomalies to coincidences, lost knowledge, or symbolic interpretations. But for those who see the Watchers as a real presence, each of these traces is part of a puzzle pointing to a far more complex past, in which humanity and others shared the same stage. Block 17. The hidden message in sacred texts. The Bible, the Book of Enoch, and other traditions do not just tell stories, they also preserve warnings. The account of the sons of God and the daughters of men can be read as a record of events, but also as a lesson for future generations. The structure of these texts suggests that certain details were deliberately preserved, perhaps so that if something similar were to happen again, the signs could be recognized. Words like mingle with the seed of men or descend to the earth can have more than one meaning, and not all are purely spiritual. The central teaching could be, beware of accepting without question those who promise immediate and dazzling progress. Ancient history shows that every time there was an abrupt technological leap, the cost was high: wars, collapses, dependency. The warning is timeless knowledge can be a gift or a weapon, and the intention of the one who offers it is as important as the content itself. Block 18. Closing and questions to the audience. If Genesis 6 and the Book of Enoch are not just myths but ancient records of contact with another civilization, then our entire concept of history is transformed. We would no longer be a species that developed in isolation, but a humanity shaped, intervened in, and perhaps watched over by external intelligences. In that scenario, the key question is not whether the Watchers existed, but why they came and what they truly sought. Was it an act of benevolence, manipulation, or simply an exploration mission that got out of control? And looking to the present, what if right now, in secret laboratories or research programs, a new chapter of this story were already unfolding? What if the same forces or descendants of those were preparing their return? I invite you to reflect. Are we ready to recognize the signs if something like this were to happen? Can we learn from the past and avoid repeating the same mistakes? And what if the Watchers never really left but have been here all along, watching and waiting?